We live in interesting times. Instead of enjoying the benefits and fruits of all of the advances and sacrifices that people have made over the past few centuries and even decades, here we are in 2024. Everything's scarce, everyone's scared, everything's contagious, every threat's just about ready to culminate at any moment to take us out. It's funny how that works. And of course, those who rule and the ever-obedient media are all too ready to remind us of all of these things, and also to remind us that it's all our fault and we should really be feeling bad about that. But what's occurred to me as we've been travelling is that I think that you can see in many of us certain patterns of behaviour and thinking that has been influenced by the times in which we live. Interestingly, the Greek word for trauma is wound. So it might be said that most people who are alive today are walking around in at least a partially emotionally wounded state. We've all been really impacted by the events that have happened. And some people would say that the world's always been this way and it's only the digital media that has brought it up close and personal. I don't actually agree with that. I think there's been a massive upspike in the drama and trauma and heartache that we're seeing in the world. But regardless of whether it's always been this extent or whether it's been up-ramped, the reality is it's up close and personal. But what I wanted to talk about is how living through times such as these impacts on the way that we respond to day-to-day life challenges and issues that we have to contend with. Two particular symptoms that are very common to anyone that's been exposed to trauma: codependence and disassociation. What I mean by codependence is that there's an unequal balance in a relationship. One side of the ledger has an inordinate amount of influence in the dynamic of the relationship. Disassociation is essentially the phenomena of wanting to distance yourself from situations that you perhaps don't want to be part of, or at least have some sort of barrier between you and the thing that is causing you stress. And I personally think that that gives us a great degree of insight as to why the people that are running the show today seem to be so interested in keeping the cycle of trauma going. But that's another story. For the purpose of this video, I wanted to focus on people who are moving to another country, because those percentage of people that are looking to move to another country are usually those people who have been able to identify that there's something significantly wrong in what's going on around them. People move for all reasons, but that's generally the theme that we see of people who are looking to move to a new country. Regardless of the reason why you've chosen to move to another country, the reality is that that process in itself is very stressful. And for a lot of people, it is traumatic. Leaving your home country, saying goodbye to all of your friends and family and everything that's familiar to you, and finding yourself in a country where you can't speak the language often. You are in a situation where you're looking for many things. You're looking for solutions to many issues that you have. You are starting again, and it's like really being a baby in some ways. You have to start from scratch and really find your way. So what we see not infrequently is that people will arrive, and within a very short space of time, they'll become extremely dependent on a person or an online forum, to the degree that they'll make life-changing decisions based on the information that they're being given. We've noticed that people will quite often do this without even realising it. In any country that you go to, there are always predators. There's people who are waiting, and they know the way this game is played. They know how things roll. They understand that when people arrive, they're in exactly that state. They're vulnerable, they're looking for someone to depend on, and in a lot of cases, they're looking just for someone to take their trouble away. And we see this manifest in interesting ways. It'll sometimes be that people will just make decisions that are baffling and really contrary to the intelligent, insightful people that they are. Coupled with this reality is also the ingrained pattern within us that we want things to move at a certain pace. We're used to things working in a certain way. We're able to buy a house in this time frame, buy a car in that time frame, get these things done. In many places where people come from, you're able to get things done in a pretty timely manner and in a certain process. But when you arrive in Paraguay, it doesn't necessarily play that game. Paraguay has its own speed, but instead of working at that speed, what we have seen not infrequently are situations where people seek to fast-track processes. After only being here for a few months, they'll try and get something significant done. And the process that they'll take in order to get that done will be to place an inordinate amount of trust in someone that they've only recently met, and to somewhat distance themselves from the situation and hope that it's all going to work out because, after all, so-and-so said that that's the way things roll here. Well, it's really dangerous, and it's something that we really need to be mindful of. We need to understand that we have come with these certain dispositions, these certain patterns, and until we're aware of the potential for any of us to fall into these patterns, the reality is they can sneak up on us. We can convince ourselves that this situation is 100%, that person is 100% trustworthy, this process is bulletproof. And there's an untold number of people that we've come across and heard stories about who have subsequently regretted taking that position. Every country works to its own tempo. Every country has its own speed, its own way of doing things. And I'd contend that if you allow it to be, that can be your best friend. When you move at the pace of Paraguay, what you inevitably do is you slow down. You can't go quickly here with most things. It's almost inevitable that things will take longer. There will be complications. You'll have to just let the thing take its course. We're going to have to wait to find the right property. We're going to have to wait to go through the due processes to get the car. Whatever it is we're needing to do, we have to move at Paraguay time. The only other option is to speed it up, and unless you get really lucky, the chances of something going askew are really significant. I think of it like being at the beach or at a river. When you jump in, you always make sure that you know what's in the water. If you don't, you proceed with caution. Don't go in over your head unless you can handle it. If you get into a riptide or a current, go with it. You don't swim against it, and certainly don't try and swim upriver. To do any of those things will get you into trouble quick smart. And whenever possible, swim between the flags so that if you do get into trouble, people can see you. That if you choose to go ahead and do things in a place like Paraguay that are outside of the flags, outside of the accepted standard ways of doing things, there comes a risk. And sometimes the risk is worth taking, like anything. But the important thing is, in anything in life, if you're going to take a risk, you need to really understand what risk you're taking. And until you've spent time here, you can't know. Just like when you go to a new beach or river, you can't know how that body of water behaves. And if you do get into trouble, you call out to a lifeguard. You don't call out to some drunk laying asleep on the beach. And so too, when you get into a issue that you need dealing with, you don't just ask anybody. You don't just jump online and get the first opinion that comes along. And just on the topic of reaching out for information, I'm personally not a massive fan of social media per se, even though I've got a YouTube channel. You won't find me on Facebook or any of those forums much, but I do recognise they're a wonderful tool, and they're a great starting place if you're looking to create a list of possible options for whatever you're looking to do. Of course, social media and threads and forums can be wonderful places to start the process, but I emphasise this, that's the starting point. What is really problematic in my view is when people use social media forums like they're a magic peanut dispensing machine where you can just go and put something in and it will spit out the answer often that you're looking for. I would contend that the internet often becomes that surrogate party that we tend to depend on. Oh, I've got a problem, I'll go to the magic machine, type in my problem, and there'll be always a good person there to spit out the right answer. When we're talking to someone on a social media platform, we have no idea who they are, what their agenda is. And it's also a really good place for those people who are looking to exploit these particular issues to be swimming in those pools just so that they can be there when you're asking the question that you're asking. Over time, you'll meet people and you will make contacts that will be invaluable to you. And that when you do have an issue or you do need to get something done, these will be the people that you will call. Overwhelmingly, you will notice that those people are not the kind of people who are sitting on their laptop in a chat forum waiting to answer some random person's question about some problem that they have. Who are the people that are sitting there waiting to answer your questions? Well, who knows? But at the very least, I would take the information that I get from someone online with the same degree of confidence that I would take from a stranger on the street. I wouldn't discount it necessarily, but I definitely wouldn't bet the farm on it. And it's not something that I would consider to be a reliable way to solve all my problems. I think the important thing is for all of us just to admit to ourselves that we at least have the potential to fall for the trap of overly relying on someone, falling into an unhealthy, codependent relationship, and that we also have the potential to fall into this mindset of disassociation, together with the other patterns that we've come to this new country with, like our tendency to want to get things done quick, smart, in our own time, can really be counterproductive to our well-being and our process in settling into our new country. I personally think it's one of the most important subjects in the world today. The powers that be really don't want you to know these things. In fact, I think it's become an indispensable tool of governance to keep us in this state, because a population that is prone to codependence and disassociation is a very compliant population indeed. And I suspect that's been the aim all along. So thanks for considering what I've got to say, and until next time, take care. Ciao.
Anta y dame de tu decimo.